I've done like a variety of the opportunities available. So I've done volunteering before with both the Frederickson Lab and the Rawlinson Lab. And I did a work study with the Wright Lab. I did an ROP 299 with the Weiss Lab. And then with the Stinchcombe Lab, I did a third year research project. I got both the KSR Research Award and did a CGCS internship. And then I'm currently doing a 498 project with the Frederickson Lab.
Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm in my 4th year, double majoring in EEB and health and disease. I've done an ROP 299 and EEB 397, both with Shelby Riskin. And for about 2 years now, I've been a volunteer with one of the labs at Sick Kids. And this past summer, I also worked at Sick Kids through the same lab.
Thanks, Michelle. And finally, last but not least, Ellie.
Hi there, I am the little tiny second year, and I'm currently in an ROP 299 with the Rockman Lab, which is an EEB, and then I'm also in a work study with the Rod Lab, that's also an EEB. I'm majoring in the ecology and evolutionary biology major, and then also the molecular genetics major, and a minor in environmental science.
Okay, thank you. Those are awesome panelists, and you'll hear from them later. You'll be able to ask them any questions you'd like afterwards. I noticed in the chat before asking if it'll be recorded. So yes, I just started recording halfway through the introductions. I kind of forgot about that. So if you don't want to be, I think it shows the if you don't want to be in the video, I think it shows you. So take your video off. So right now I will start going through the slides, and then after that, we'll open up to questions for the panelists and myself. All right. So this presentation covers EEB research opportunities available to undergraduate students, and just a shout out to the EEB Undergraduate Student Union. One of their presidents or co-presidents put it together a couple of years ago, and I've kind of edited a bit, but it was them who first put it together. So shout out to EBU. So here are the different types of research we have available at EB. First, there's good old volunteering. There's a research opportunities program, which some of the panelists have mentioned that they took part in. And there's research excursions program, which is called REP. So ROP and REP are programs that are run by the Faculty of Arts and Science, and many departments are a part of it, and EEB is one of them. But it is all organized and administered by the faculty. And we'll go over that a little bit in a few slides. There's field courses, project courses, and various research grants and scholarships, usually taking place in the summertime. And there's also work study and research assistant jobs with EEB Lab. So first, volunteering. Many students get their first experience in research through volunteering in labs. It's a great way to get started, become acquainted with research, different types of research, and see what you like and dislike. You can also build connections with different profs and grad students, and just see what it's like to be a part of a lab. Usually this work is very tedious, like counting bugs, counting seeds and things like that. So it's a little bit of a grunt work, but it's a great way to get your foot in the door, especially if you have no lab experience. Next, we have the Research Opportunities Program, aka ROP. So this is available for second and third year students and gives you a chance to join a professor's research project and earn course credit towards your degree and your program requirements. Again, I mentioned that this is run by the Faculty of Arts and Science, and EEB is usually a part of it, and many other departments are part of it too. So if you're majoring in something else, you can likely find an ROP available via different department as well. But this is also a great introduction to research. You can learn methods, get to know fellow students, and develop relationships with faculty members and grad students. But it is a course, so regular tuition fees apply. And I believe the applications open up this month, but you would go to the website here, Arts Science. Again, oh, the slides will be available also, and they're always available to students to look through. So all these links and stuff, don't worry about copying it down. Here, there's an example of a student named Michaela. It's her ROP 399 project where she, in the Weiss lab, where she investigated seed viability after storage and artificial aging. So there's lots of various projects, but the project is already defined and you sign up for that project. And I think many of the panelists can talk about their ROPs too. The REP program, Research Excursions, kind of like the ROP, but you're going somewhere, hence the name Excursions. You're going to do some field work. I think it was available again last year, but the first summer of COVID, there was no reps, but I believe this summer there will be some as well. Again, there are different reps over different departments. EEB, past EEB locations have included Southern Alberta, Dominican Republic, New York City, Algonquin Park, Ecuador. So it's, you go on a trip and you work with a professor's project in collecting samples or doing data analysis, but you're in the field. And again, like ROP, it is for course credit and tuition fees apply, etc. That information will be available on the Arts and Science REP website. Next, we have field courses. So the department usually offers various field courses, and these usually take place over the summer, over 2 weeks. There is a program called Ontario University's Program in Field Biology, OUPFB, which allows U of T students to take field courses offered by other Ontario universities. In normal years, this is a great opportunity because you don't have to apply for transfer credit or anything like that. And if you want to take a cool field course that U of T itself doesn't offer, but maybe there's like a bird one that York University offers, or something that Queen's offers, or something like that, students can take it. For an update for summer 2022, because of COVID-19 and the complications that it just creates for doing trips like this, we are not participating in the OUPFB program, but it's just good to know, depending on what year you're in, to know that this is an opportunity. However, we may still offer a field course through our department, specifically for U of T students, but we're still working on this information. So stay tuned, hopefully we can do that. Next, we have project courses, which are offered through our department, basically an independent project that you work in a professor's lab. Usually they start at a 3rd year project, and there's 4th year projects too. They're usually full year, but there is a half credit 4th year course, which is usually a literature review because it's only half the year. But basically these are projects that you work with a prof. The prof will help you define and design the project, and you to undertake it over the year. The past two, I know COVID has its complications, but the last couple of years we've had to have our research fair, which is usually in person, online. But because it was online, you can kind of see, students can take a look at what projects people have done, which usually if you didn't come live to the event in person, then you wouldn't be able to see people's posters. But I think a cool thing that happened over the pandemic is we kind of just found a way to put everything online. So if you're interested in project courses, I would highly recommend checking out the research fair website and just kind of take a look at all the awesome work that students worked on their projects, to give you an idea of what you can do. Another another opportunity is work study, which sometimes can lead to like a more permanent position, like a research assistant RA position, a little bit more rare. But work study, for those of you who don't know, is basically the university's program to create part-time jobs for students. The jobs they offer are in all sorts of areas, not just EEB, but often EEB profs post work study jobs, have work study jobs for positions in their lab. So check that out. There is a summer work study program, but you do have, because of the name work study, you have to be enrolled in courses to qualify in the summer session and the fall winter session. And all that information is up on CLNX for you to apply. Research assistant jobs are more rare, and I think they're typically not advertised, and it usually kind of comes out of being part of a lab for a while. And then, for example, if Ellie keeps working in the Rockman lab and she needs some help over the summer, they might just say, hey, Ellie knows how to work these things, and we'll give her a part-time job. So those things are not usually advertised, but it can come out of working in a lab for a while. There's also, summer is coming up, even though it's the first day of February. A lot of students start thinking ahead. And a lot of the research grants and scholarships take place over the summer. Notably, in our department, we have the NSERC USRA, like many other U of T departments. We also have a KSR award. I think Jesse mentioned that. It's similar to the NSERC, but the project has to be related to the Koffler Scientific Reserve. And there are a few profs that work out of there. We also have, there's also the U of T Excellence Award, which is similar to NSERC. It's just doing research over the summer and getting paid to do it. There's also some here that people don't always know about, that some of our students, the panelists were part of in the past, are the Center for Global Change Science Award. Similar to NSERC, you get money to work on a project over the summer, and there's different EEB profs that are part of the center that may be available to oversee a project. There's also, this is very new, I just found out about it like a couple of weeks ago, but there's a new data science institute. So for those of you who are interested in data science and statistics and stuff like that, there's a undergraduate research program over the summer. And there's a bunch of data science projects all over the university and various departments, and some of them are biology related. And there may be a handful of EB profs that have projects there, among other departments. Finding profs. So this is in the slides that you can take a look at when you have time, but I don't want to take up too much time going over this because it's more of an individual project to undertake on your own time. So I'm going to open it up for questions now for any of the panelists or myself. So just take some time for those of you here have questions, just put them in the chat while I take a sip of water.
I can answer the question that's in the chat. So what's the possibility of a first year getting a research position? I don't know like how to define it in terms of like a percentage, but I think it really just depends on who you contact and how you present yourself. So like when I was in first year, I ended up like cold emailing some profs. So this was in my second semester. And so like one prof that I reached out to like they didn't have anything for me to do, so I couldn't volunteer. But then there was another prof who essentially passed me on to one of her graduate students, and they had like stuff for me to do. So it really depends, but it never hurts to reach out. I guess we raised hand from Alex first.
Yes, thank you. First, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. I have two questions. First, I was wondering, where can we find these slides?
I'll put that in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And for my second question, I was wondering how much your grades and your marks affects you getting a research opportunity. For example, for someone who did not do well in their first year or second year, like, is there a chance that they get a research opportunity, or like, is there an advice for them?
I can answer that one. I think there's this notion of like to get a research opportunity, you have to be the brightest, the smartest, whatever. At the end of the day, profs are huge nerds. And if you show the same amount of interest for their research that they do, they're going to be more willing to take you on. Like, for example, I know people who had GPAs in the 2s that have gotten research opportunities, that have gotten published, and have even gotten into grad school and finished their PhDs. So at the end of the day, it's how you present yourself, how interested you are. If you're only there to get published, profs can see through that. So I would say find a lab you're genuinely interested in and email that prof and point out specific things that you're interested in their research, if possible, unless you just want to be like, I like plants. I don't know. That could work.
Yeah, I think off of that too. So right now, the ROP 299 I'm in, it's technically an environmental chemistry lab, but like probably a lot of you first years and second years right now, I kind of got destroyed by Chem 135 and 136, and yet somehow I'm in the chemistry lab. So I wouldn't, I honestly, the grades like aren't a big thing for like my specific lab, and it's more just about the enthusiasm that we just talked about.
Yeah, same for me as well. When I had applied for my ROP 299, like, you know, I stayed afloat first year, but it wasn't like stellar by any means, which I think, you know, with such a tough adjustment happens to a lot of people. And when I had looked at the different ROP projects that were going on, it was listed under EEB because it was surrounding the environment, but it was largely about like pedagogy and education, which by your first year, you haven't really taken an education course or something like that before. So a lot of it drew on kind of personal interests and like, you know, tutoring and things like that, that could be my way of like demonstrating interest. So like, I think especially earlier on in your undergrad, like the professors will know that sometimes like you either won't have as much like, you know, relevant course experience or as much like that like to show for like marks wise when it comes to that, which is like then factors even more into why like the passion and like showing the interest like is so important.
Michelle, there's an attendee asking you about how did you get your volunteering position at the kids. You can talk about that a little bit.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd story. So is early 2020, I had heard from somebody that there was a research symposium that was going on about retinoblastoma, which is a rare childhood eye cancer. And as both, you know, a scientist and also as a retinoblastoma survivor, I was especially interested in going, and it was walking distance from my apartment. So I, like, you know, a few days before the symposium, signed up, showed up, put myself out there, and something about the like RB research community is how like community oriented it is. And a lot of parents, a lot of survivors, things like that get involved through there. And so attending that symposium and kind of just networking while I was there had turned into attending like monthly working meetings and stuff through Zoom. And just kind of putting myself out there had, you know, over time, some like smaller responsibilities and stuff. So I think my main takeaway is just like, like Google around and search around for like professors who like have labs and research things that you're interested in. And like it's very intimidating at first, but just like putting yourself out there and just like, yeah, making yourself like a known presence for them, even if it starts off like as something very small. Like if you are consistent and like a reliable presence, it like will like it will be noticed, you know.
We have a hand up. Jennifer, did you want to ask a question?
Hi, yeah, I
Hi.
was just wondering. I was looking at the REP, the Research Excursion Opportunities program, and I saw that you have to have between 9 and 13.5 credits to be eligible. Does that seem like a little surprising? Like you can't have more than 13.5 credits?
I get whatever it says on there. Sorry, the EEB department doesn't run that program. It's run by Arts and Science. So there's, I think it's specifically designed for second and third year students. So I think that's why they put the credit
Cap on it.
Yeah, cap on it. But if you have questions, there's, I think on the ROP website, there are more drop-down menus and specifics. I wish I could say more, but I don't run the program. We advertise it because EEB is a part of it, as in they offer projects through it, but the administration of it is not something I do or the department does. There should be a contact there on the REP website if you have more questions about like when you need to have, like, do you need to have it at the end of summer, before summer? I don't know. So I would recommend if you have more specific questions about when you need, when you're hitting that credit mark, I would contact the REP office.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I saw a USRA question. When doing the USRAs, how much support or help do you get with your project, or is it very independent?
I can answer that. I think it depends very much on who your supervisor is and what their kind of style of work is. There will definitely be like a lot of variation how much independence you have. Like for example, with my supervisor, she was quite hands-on. We would meet once a week to discuss my progress, and she'd help me out with anything that I'm stuck on. And like kind of, we would talk about what I would work on next. But I think it's also important, it's kind of a different mindset that you have to be in, because it's not like a normal course where, you know, the professor just gives you certain deadlines and you have to give in your assignments in these deadlines. It's kind of like you are kind of taking control over it. It's your project. You have to be the one who, for example, if the professor doesn't suggest meeting and you feel like a meeting every week would be what would work for you, then it's important for you to actually ask for that. And if you're stuck on something or whatever, you're the one who kind of has to take the initiative to reach out to your supervisor. So yeah, it's kind of like, it's the independent part will depend on the professor, but in the end of the day, it's kind of your responsibility to manage the whole project.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Hannah just said. Like in my experience, my supervisor was very hands-off, which was a little bit intimidating at first, but like, because I did like both of my summer research with the same prof, but the second time, because I had that prior experience, it was like a lot easier. So like but even though if they're like hands off, they're always there if you need to contact them. But definitely it's a lot of self-regulation.
There's a question here. I'm going to just read it out so the panelists can hear it. When approaching profs with project ideas, how much information should we bring to them? Or how far along should we have developed our project idea when asking profs?
In my experience, so aside from this year, it's all been the prof or someone in their lab has an idea for an experiment. So you're typically just given one. Alternatively, like your general interests, or if there's a specific system that you'd like to work on. So some labs might only work on one system, or they might have multiple, and in which case they'd ask you, and it might just be a project that they've already come up with, especially when you're in the lower years. You're not really expected to have a project idea, and it's really just about like getting you to experience what doing research is like.
Yeah, just to add to that, I agree with Jessie. I also, for me, like coming up with a project was always like the scariest thing of doing research, and I was always like wary of that. Like a professor's gonna ask me, "Oh, so what project do you want to do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." But yeah, usually what happens is it's kind of more guided by the professor and what they're working on. But also at the same time, if you have a specific idea that you're interested in, definitely it's worth like reaching out to someone and telling them, oh, I'm really interested in that. Would you be interested in supervising me doing it? That's I've also know people, for example, doing their 498s who are doing that as well. But yeah, I think it's would maybe be more once you've had some research experience already.
Yeah, I guess adding on for like the lower, so I guess like first and second year stuff. For mine personally, I'm basically just shadowing a grad student, so I don't have to come up with all the things on my own because I feel like I know nothing, which is kind of the point of them in the younger years. And then I guess in the upper years, when you can make your own projects, that sounds really cool. But I also actually had a question about that. So for the upper year courses, when you're like contacting profs and all that, do you have like you don't have to have like a complete idea formed then, and is it more they can guide you more, and then like for an NSERC as well, do they kind of still guide you more?
So yeah, like honestly, you don't have to have a project idea. Like I've definitely known people who have contacted their profs and been like, I'm interested in this generally. Could we maybe talk about project ideas? And that's usually what I do when I email people. I'm like, I'm interested in these specific things about your research. Could we maybe like schedule a Zoom call and like chat about it and maybe develop a project? Or like I've had profs be like, okay, you could either go one of two routes, which one seems more appealing? Or you could even point out like a specific paper of theirs and be like, I really enjoyed this paper of yours. Is there any way we could incorporate some of these methods into like my project? So I think as long as you have the interest there and you've shown that you've actually like read their work or like you know what they do, I think that will suffice. That's just my experience. I don't know if anyone has any other points to make.
Yeah, for this year, my prof had like some ideas of general things that the lab was thinking about doing. And then I had like my own idea of something that I wanted to do. So she just ended up letting me come up with it. But like, they'll probably always have something for you to do if you can't think of anything. And they're always going to be there to support. And most likely you'll have like a grad student who can at least be a little bit more hands-on with helping you in case you feel like you need more direct support.
Yeah, in my experience, I had the same professor for my ROP and my 397. So when it came to like reaching out and everything, like that part was kind of straightforward because the conversation of like transitioning to a 397 kind of happened naturally in that respect, but also the process itself can be a little bumpy sometimes, which I think is normal for research. Like hearing a no about something is completely normal. Like hearing or like having things come up on the road, whether like logistically or like with grants or anything, like it happens. That's kind of like, part of the roller coaster per se. But when it came to like figuring out what the project was going to be, there was initially kind of brainstorming about continuing the ROP into the summer, and logistically that just kind of fell through. So then kind of touch base again going into my third year. And the way the project choice conversation kind of went was I wanted something that involved like citizen science, like community gathered research, stuff like that. Similar into my first project, but with more of like a quantitative and statistical aspect to that. So we knew we kind of wanted to go in that direction, but what the application was, we like kind of just had a Zoom call together and brainstormed, went back and forth with some ideas. So yeah, I think in general, it can vary depending on like the relationship you have with the like professor and like if you've kind of been established there before or if you're kind of reaching out for the first time. But I think in general, yeah, having kind of an idea of like a general area, but still being open to having some kind of conversation.
Yeah, just to add to that, in my personal experience, it's always kind of been the professor who kind of gives me the idea. Like for example, with my USRA, actually, because I was doing a work study with Jacqueline already. So she came up to me and she was like, listen, I have this project. Would you be interested in it? And you could potentially apply for an NSERC. And I was like, yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll apply. And that was kind of how I got it. Like I wasn't even thinking of doing it. So definitely like starting, whether it's a volunteer or a work study or something, will always open up more doors. And it's just kind of a good way to get your foot in the door, whether it's specifically with a certain lab, or even sometimes your supervisor might be like, oh, I've heard of this other professor who's doing something else that's interesting. I know you're interested in that kind of thing that they're working on. So yeah, I think it's really good to kind of open up more doors and get to meet grad students and stuff like that, even when you're online. And the other thing is like, when reaching out to supervisors, like it's always important to show something that you're interested in, but make sure that you're actually interested in that thing and not just, having something to say. Because if, for example, like I know, for example, I've reached out to professors, I usually try to like find a paper of theirs that I find interesting or something and mention that specifically. And so they might take like what you said and kind of build off on that and be like, oh, you're interested in this paper. Well, here's a project that's kind of similar or that builds on that you can work on. So make sure that what you're mentioning is actually something you would want to work on. Yeah.
Someone in the chat is asking, what do I need to do in order for profs to tell me that there are other opportunities that other profs are offering? That's kind of circumstantial. Sometimes it'll just kind of come up in conversation as like new projects are being developed. Like a lot of the faculty, obviously, like remain in contact with each other and like hear each other's updates about projects. So yeah, just like if staying in contact with the professor, whether that's like through volunteering or through just like, speaking with them about research at some point. And then like a lot of those conversations sometimes will just like come naturally, but sometimes if like, especially in COVID times, I before getting my position at Sick Kids last summer, I was cold emailing professors about summer research. through the Institute of Medical Science, which is more on the health and disease side of things. But I was cold emailing professors, and it happened a lot where, you know, due to COVID, a lot of them weren't taking undergrads, or a lot of them, you know, the funding had shifted and things like that. And so sometimes what like is less common than just kind of hearing it like circumstantially, but it'll be, you know, I'm not in a position to like take on like an undergrad, or like we're not really looking for anybody right now, but you know, if they do know somebody, they might be able to like share that information. But yeah, a lot of it's kind of on a case by case basis.
Maybe just to rephrase that question that Betty asked, and something I've seen in other sessions, just from your experience, what do you think profs are looking for when they want to take a research student? I know earlier you said it's not going to be, you don't have to have a 4.0, but what are like the characteristics of an ideal research student, or someone that they want to potentially take on?
I think we mentioned this a lot before, just like enthusiasm, especially like in the work study I got, I had just moved into where I am now, and I was in the work study interview, and my prof saw the fish tank in my background, and the work study is like cleaning fish. So that enthusiasm there, and then we just literally talked about fish for about an hour. So just making connections like that outside of just like the academic standpoints as well are really great. And then especially connecting, I think, with your TAs would be really great too. Like, especially in EEB, the TAs are absolutely amazing, and they help so much. And if you ask them about their research and just get involved with them and just communicate how excited you are about what they're doing, they can sometimes give you little connections and all that stuff too, which is great.
Yeah, can definitely vouch for my the TAs. I had learned that ROP existed through the Bio 130 TA that I had. And I ended up like, you know, looking into it a couple months after the fact. But yeah, I can definitely say, yeah, the enthusiasm is a huge part, because especially like in your undergrad, it's a normal thing that like you need to have a first research experience at some point. Like it's not like an expectation for you to have a whole like resume of research experience going into it. They know like a lot of people, this is their first like time. So that's why like the genuine interest is so big. Also making sure like, yeah, like the like expectations are kind of aligned of like how kind of the year will go. And a lot of that also comes with genuine interest in the project. Doing a year-long project on something is way easier and way more rewarding when you're actually interested in it. But yeah, just, you know, approaching it in just a genuine way and like showing like, you know, your genuine self right out the gate. Like I'm a huge trivia nerd, and in my ROP interview, we ended up discussing Jeopardy, which, you know, was kind of relevant since the project had to do with education. But, you know, those kinds of things happen, and, you know, just the focus being less on like, how do I impress this person, and more just like, how can I show them who I am?
Yeah, just like everything everyone has already said, already great advice. One thing that I think I got asked that like kind of made me pause was like, why did you choose my lab specifically? Because like you can say you're interested in research and you're interested in like plants, let's say, and you're interested in these broad questions, but a lot of labs sort of overlap in that. So like, why exactly do you like this one lab? And that could be anything really. And I would strongly advise not saying like you liked a certain paper unless you really know that paper. Like most of the time they know you're not really reading that paper, which is fine, but just don't bring it up. So like if it's something about the prof, like maybe they've taught a course you took, or like one of their grad students was your TA and they like really changed your life, like just say that, and your passion will probably just come through naturally.
Yeah, I think I was falling into the same hole of like trying to impress the profs and people I was emailing, but like when I focused more on, I think like actually making like a genuine connection with the people I was reaching out to. Like right now I'm trying to get summer research positions and all that stuff. And when I'm looking at their websites, I'm not just going to like their publications and all that. Sometimes they'll have like a picture of their dog, and that would be a fun thing to bring up in an interview, or just like they have a lab mascot, or just making actual connections, because the profs are real human beings, and if you make them laugh, maybe they'll like you more.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also the easiest way to demonstrate interest in a topic is taking courses that are related to the topic. So if you want to do macroevolution research, you should be taking EEB 362 macroevolution. Or if you want to do like population ecology research, you should be taking 319 or like whatever. So I think that's like the easiest way to demonstrate interest, because then in your email you can mention, I have some experience with this topic from taking courses in XYZ.
And even depending on what your research area is, that can also come from like extracurriculars and like other experience that isn't like explicitly research. Because my first project, I think, yeah, it said what like concerned kind of like biology education and like helping kids learn about the environment. And in high school, I like was a tutor and had like made infographics for fun, like teaching about environmental science. So it wasn't like a course that I had taken, but it was kind of just like something that I had thought was cool, and I never thought would really kind of like I'd have the opportunity for it to become relevant again. But yeah, there's kind of those like non-course ways for you to like it, both demonstrate like those kinds of things can be brought up in an application, but also it can be a way for you to explore like your interests before like to determine what you're interested in for a research project too.
I would also just add, which might be a little bit different, but I definitely agree that interest is the most important thing. But I also think it's okay if you don't have anything to kind of like back up like other experiences that you've had. And maybe especially in the beginning when you still haven't built any research experience, I think it's also okay to cast like a slightly wider net, because you will be able to get something. It might not be like the most exciting thing in the world for you, but like you will be able to find an opportunity, because there are a lot of them are looking for people to help out with things that maybe might sound a little bit boring. Like Amy was saying in the beginning, like, you know, just things in the lab that are a bit like grunt work. But again, I think it's okay to start with something like that. And then that would just help you to build and do more interesting things in the future.
Yeah, and even in, I think, instances where it's not necessarily like a passion project, there can still be like little things that you will find like interesting about it. Like maybe the topic, you know, a little while into the project, the topic isn't like, you know, something you'd want to pursue for the rest of your life, but you really like, you know, how you can visualize the data and how you can like present it in this interesting way, or, you know, the kind of statistical methods that are being used for the project are like, you know, you might find them tedious or something, but the impact that the project can have and how it ties into, you know, what's going on in the world, you find very rewarding. And, you know, as you kind of move through it, you can determine like what your interests are and can use those to kind of, yeah, learn more about like how you'd like to carry that on in the future too.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. So if anybody has any more questions, you can put your hand up or type it in when you have like a couple more minutes. I'm just gonna do a couple announcements. So yes, this is being recorded. I will do my best to upload it to YouTube as fast as I can. And just make sure you're following, if any, I think the best way, I'll post it on the Facebook page of the EB Facebook page. So if you're at least, because I'm not going to have everyone's email who attended right now, and I will send it out to the EB student list, but some of you may not be EB students. I don't know, but most of you should be. But if you just follow or like the Facebook page, it'll be there. I think that's the easiest way. And I'll post the slides there as well. We're going to be asking that. Oh, okay, there was a question. Anjali asked, how do you go about asking profs? Like, hey, I'm cool, even with Gruntweb, I'll do anything. If you don't need a proper RA or something, especially if you're asking that wider net, as Hannah said.
I would say like probably the best place to start with that would be a work study. There are a lot, you'll find a lot of EEB work studies on CLNX, like there's quite a few of them, and those are easiest because you just have to like submit an application. You do have to write a cover letter, but yeah, it's not that hard, and you don't have to like do the cold calling or like cold emailing where you have to like come up with who to contact. You can just see what's available and apply for it. So I'd say that would be your best starting point.
All right, any last final tips from our panelists?
I might just add part. You could probably also ask like your TA if like they know anyone or if they need to, but probably don't ask them if you've never actually talked to them before.
Oh, also, I just wanted to say in your undergrad, try a little bit of everything. If you think you're interested in like paleontology, try that. If you think you're interested in like the more molecular side of things, try that. If you want to do plants, sure. If you want to learn about animals, try it during your undergrad, because then when you get to grad school, you're going to be studying one specific thing most of the time. So
Yeah, when you start a position, you're kind of like you're committing to the project, but like you're not committing for the rest of your life to like studying that one particular thing. Like it's all like a part of the process of finding out what you're interested in.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think trying different stuff is important because like I've done things that are like evolutionary genetics, and now I'm working on coral reef ecology, so completely different. And I think it's important to try out different things, see what you like about this, what you like about that, and it can open up new things that you didn't know you're interested in. And yeah, like everyone said, it's not like a huge time commitment, so it's okay if, but you'll always find something that you learn out of it, like even just like what it's like to be in a lab, for example, or any of those things. There's a lot that you will learn from those experiences. So I think trying out different things is important.
And also just like don't stress about this too. I feel like a lot of people think they have to do research or have to be in like this lab or something too, but it's supposed to be fun in the end. You're supposed to enjoy what you're doing, and sometimes it just gets a little bit stressful, but don't make it that stressful because it's not the end of the world if you can't get in like this year, because there's so many opportunities at this school, and it's just a matter of finding which one is perfect for you.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, no, just yeah, at the end of the day, totally agree. Like, and just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Like, the worst thing you'll hear is no, but there's always going to be other opportunities.
I love this positive note that we're wrapping up on. And I also wanted to say, like, the fact that all these attendees showed up here, or you just came to the session today, and it doesn't matter what year you're in, first to fourth to fifth to sixth, I don't know, but just so that you know about all these opportunities at the point you are right now, that's one of the first steps. Because like, I don't know who said it, or I think Michelle said, I think people don't know about ROP and REP, and then someone just it's always like someone randomly tells somebody and they find out about it. And meanwhile, as an administrator, I'm like, but I talk about it all the time. How come no one knows about it? But I don't know how the students are getting their information. So the fact that you came to this and you're learning and you're listening to your peers and wanting to get that information is a first great step. So now you're even just more informed than you were before. And I want to stress that just check out the slides. I know I went through them very quickly because I wanted everybody to get a chance to talk to all our wonderful panelists. But if you do have a moment tonight, whenever, go through them. There's stuff that I glossed over. There are templates in there to reach out to profs. There's little tips in the notes, links to everything like ROP and REP and awards and all that kind of stuff. So obviously I couldn't go over everything in the nitty gritty, but do take the time out to look through it if you are interested in those opportunities, because all the information, we did our best to put all the information in one spot. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you especially to our panelists, Martina, Hannah, Jesse, Michelle, Ellie. Thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and I'll try to get everything up there as soon as I can. Thank you all. Bye.